December 4, 2024, Manhattan. A man in a dark blue suit walks casually outside the entrance to the Hilton Hotel, unaware that a hooded man with his face covered is stealthily following him. When the time comes, the hooded man raises a gun and shoots 3 times, twice in the back and once in the right calf. Right after that, he flees on a bicycle. The man in the blue suit dies in the hospital, and the whole United States turns around. It's Brian Thompson, CEO of United Healthcare, the largest health insurer in the United States. It's clear that this is a premeditated attack and a warning to the elites who profit in one of the most unscrupulous businesses. Chapter 1. According to the reconstruction of the scene, thanks to security cameras and witnesses, the attacker fled on a bicycle through Central Park. Now, if you are wondering how it is possible that after firing 3 shots in the middle of Manhattan, the police did not arrest him within minutes, it is necessary to note that the weapon used was equipped with some kind of silencer. One of the first hypotheses of the NYPD was that he would have used the BNT Station 6, a 9mm pistol with a rubberized rubber coatings on the barrel that make the bullet from supersonic to subsonic speed, which greatly reduces the noise of the shot. The police also found the backpack in Central Park that the assailant was allegedly carrying, and to everyone's surprise, the backpack was full of Monopoly money. By this time, the internet was already buzzing. How could he do it in the middle of Manhattan and escape? Was he a professional? What do Monopoly bills mean? Meanwhile, on the YouTube channel of Garand Zam, a group of experts and gun enthusiasts analyzed the images and ruled out that the attacker had used an anti-Station 6B because of the way he reloaded after each shot. It was most likely a pistol with a homemade silencer. The first news did nothing but fuel the scandal. The bullets were engraved with the words deny, defend, depose, a reference to the 3 strategies used by insurers to avoid having to pay. When it's time to pay, you pay, but when it's your turn to make a claim, the first thing they do is depose or delay. Everything seemed to indicate that the attack on the CEO of the leading U.S. insurer was indeed not just a personal attack, but an extreme criticism of an entire industry that generates over $900 billion a year. And the executor of the criticism appeared to be a 26-year-old young man with strong similarities to Theodore Kaczynski, aka Unabomber. Chapter 2. Brian Thompson lived with his wife and 2 children in a $1 million mansion in Maple Grove, Minnesota, a neighborhood of wealthy people like him who had a base salary of $1 million a year, but with bonuses could reach up to $9 million a year. According to his wife, Brian was an incredibly loving, generous man who truly lived life to the fullest and touched countless lives. The truth is that Brian Thompson was a hardworking and successful man. He studied business administration at the University of Iowa and then worked for almost 7 years at the consulting firm PricewaterhouseCoopers, one of the well-known Big Four, becoming a manager. From there, he moved to United Healthcare at the age of 29 and was a hard worker. He started working in financial and strategic roles and gradually worked his way up until 17 years later. In 2021, he became the CEO of the company at the age of 46, and at this point, Brian Thompson is already a millionaire. He is the father of a happy family and everything seems to be going well, but in his work nothing is really going well. In other words, yes, everything is going up in economic terms, but in life not everything is numbers, and to understand what we are talking about, we need to briefly explain how private health insurance works. An individual pays a monthly or annual fee to the insurer, which in the United States can cost around $500 a month. Obviously, this can vary depending on the different plans. In return, the insurer must cover all your medical needs. But this business has a very shady side. In the book Deny, Defend, Depose, written by Jay Feinman, describes how insurers have adopted a series of strategies to make the business much more profitable at the cost of poor service. In the book, Feinman exposes various examples, such as a life insurance policy that was not charged because the deceased did not report that he had high blood pressure, even though this had nothing to do with the cause of death. A car insurance policy that denied coverage because the insured had moved and had not updated his address, or a health insurance policy that did not pay for a cancer treatment because it was considered experimental, even though it was recommended as standard by the medical community. Imagine if at one of those worst times when you might have a serious illness like cancer or something that might kill you, the company's standard policy is to delay. In July of 2024, a group of people gathered outside the United Healthcare offices in Minnesota to protest against the insurer's practices. The situation became so tense that 11 people were arrested, but the hatred against United Healthcare had been building for some time. It turned out that they were using artificial intelligence to deny claims from their policyholders. It seems that the United Healthcare algorithm recommended denying or appealing coverage requests in 90% of the cases, and here we need to talk about another concept: prior authorization, which is the step an insurer takes before covering the cost of a treatment and consists of investigating whether a proposed procedure is medically necessary and meets the coverage criteria of the health plan before it is allowed or paid for. For example, insurers were prohibited from charging 3 times more to older people who accumulate health problems than to young people who are healthy, and it was also prohibited from dropping anyone's coverage because of their health condition. These regulations are good for protecting the insured, but of course the insurers were not going to be so happy. An article in Forbes magazine in 2020 reported that the average cost of some plans had risen by 27%. And as prices have risen, so have denials of coverage. According to a Senate report, for example, the rate of denials of coverage to seniors who have suffered a fall or stroke has risen from 10.9% in 2020 to 22.7% in 2022. By the way, United Healthcare is the #1 insurer when it comes to rejecting applications. 32% of applications are rejected. And that's how we got to the fateful day on December 4th in Manhattan, when a hooded man with a strange gun shot the CEO of United Healthcare 3 times. No one knew who he was until 5 days later. His name was Luigi Mangione, and he had something to say.
And it's completely out of touch. And it's an insult to the intelligence of the American people.
This is unfair and an insult to the intelligence of the American people and their lived experience. Chapter 3. Although the shooter managed to escape on a bicycle through Central Park and incidentally embarrass the NYPD, it is 2024, and it only takes a second for your face to appear on a security camera. The NYPD offered a $10,000 reward for anyone who could provide any information about the shooter and released this photo where he is seen smiling at the receptionist of a youth hostel in Manhattan. From that moment, it was only a matter of time before someone recognized the shooter. In the United States, there was nothing else to talk about, so soon an acquaintance was able to identify him, but it was not so easy. A former classmate of the shooter did not even recognize him when he saw the picture for the first time. It wasn't until 5 days later that the police received a call from here, a McDonald's establishment in Altoona, a small town in Pennsylvania. According to security cameras, the shooter was eating some fries at a McDonald's table, and one of the employees, after recognizing him, called the police. Apparently, when the police arrived, the suspect became very nervous. Within hours, the McDonald's establishment received hundreds of negative reviews and threats against the employee who had called the police. The internet had gone crazy. The shooter was a hero. When the name of the suspect became known, social networks were flooded with all kinds of details or information about Luigi Mangione, a 26-year-old young man in attractive shape. A nutritionist made a video speculating whether his physique was natural or not. Others found his Goodreads profile, a social network for reviewing books, and it turns out he had main camp as a pending and had given a 4 out of 5 to the manifesto of Ted Kaczynski, one of the most notorious terrorists in the history of the United States. This is what he wrote about Unabomber Manifesto. It is simply impossible to ignore how accurate many of his predictions about modern society have proven to be. He also liked this quote from Ted Kaczynski: "The concept of mental health in our society is largely defined by an individual's ability to behave according to the needs of the system, and to do so without showing signs of stress." If you don't know, Ted Kaczynski was this man right here, an extremely intelligent man, PhD in mathematics, who became a lone wolf sending letter bombs to academics in order to stop technological progress. The Ted Kaczynski story is long and complex. It involves a series of CIA experiments and an interesting FBI investigation. We won't go into that in this video. But the point is that the media has created a very interesting parallel between Luigi and Ted Kaczynski. The Manifest. At the time when Ted Kaczynski wrote the Manifesto of Industrial Society and its Future, he sent it to the media and told them that if they would publish the manifesto, he would stop committing attacks. They thought that by publishing it, maybe someone could recognize the Unabomber's writing and expressions, and that's when the FBI gave permission to publish the manifesto. The strategy worked. Ted Kaczynski's brother recognized it. But going back to Luigi Mangione, I was looking for his manifesto and I found it in the subfolder of a journalist named Ken Klippenstein, and the truth is it's not a manifesto, it's a letter. I'm not going to read all of it because it's not that interesting. It just talks about him acting alone and exposing the US healthcare system. Maybe the media has been a little bitchy here. They talked about a manifesto and published some quotes so that they bring him closer to the figure of the Unabomber. That does not take away that the character of Luigi Mangione is really interesting and that has generated this fascination on the internet. For starters, Luigi comes from a well-known family of Italian origin. His grandfather Nicholas Mangione Sr. became a millionaire with many businesses including resorts, golf courses, nursing homes, and even a radio station. Luigi studied at the Gilman School, a private school that costs about $30,000 a year. He was an exceptional student. He was even chosen to give the graduation speech. After high school, he studied at the University of Pennsylvania and got a bachelor's and master's degree in computer science. That led him to work on the development of Civilization VI, a huge game. Then he specialized in data engineering and ended up working in Honolulu, Hawaii, where he surfed and traveled and stuff. At least until he suffered a back injury and had to undergo surgery. There is a photo on his Twitter account that seems to show an X-ray of the surgery. Apparently Mangione suffered a condition that affects the vertebrae of the spine, causing a slip or fracture of the same. All this was learned from his publications on Reddit with the user Mr. Cactus. Something really curious about Luigi is the number 286. This picture that he has here on Twitter is Breloom, a Pokemon that corresponds to number 286 in the Pokédex. The thing is that there is a Bible verse that is Proverbs 2:86 that tells, "It is better to be poor and honest than rich and dishonest." By the way, do you know how many tweets Mangione had published exactly? Yes, 286. But this does not end here. The code 286 is a code used by insurance companies to deny services not covered by the policy. And to top it off, the McDonald's where Mangione was caught is 286 miles from where the attack occurred. Coincidence? I don't think so. It seems that he wanted to create some kind of symbolism with that number. So Luigi was there with back pain and tweeting, but suddenly he disappeared. His family and close friends say that before December 4th, no one knew about him for 6 months. In fact, his mother had reported his disappearance to the San Francisco PD because she hadn't been able to contact him since July. During this time, he probably prepared the attack. In fact, when he was arrested, the police found a notebook in which he planned to carry out the attack with a bomb, but he changed his mind because it could cause collateral damage. But he finally decided on a firearm. Specifically, this is an FMDA 19.2, one of the first reliable and functional Glock-style designs, and Luigi's in particular was a modification created by a user named Chairman1, who creates designs of this type of ghost guns. Once he was ready, Luigi traveled to New York and... Chapter 4. Immediately after learning the identity of the shooter, internet was filled with memes. This is inevitable, and if you are sensitive to these things, you should not continue watching the video, but I have to tell because it is part of history and is a reflection of how public opinion has turned to the ideas of Luigi Mangione. This is a phenomenon too common. When a killer is handsome, people are obsessed with him. But memes aside, after the attack, things became dangerous. Wanted posters started to appear with the faces of various CEOs. Some companies have removed the images and information of their executives from their websites and start increasing their spending on private security. A woman was arrested in Florida for arguing with her insurer on the phone and telling them, delay, deny, depose, You guys are next. The lady apologized and said she was not serious, but she was arrested and faces charges of terroristic threats and mass shooting. The United States is one of the countries that spends the most on health care, yet its life expectancy is similar to that of a Latin American country. The point is that in the United States, the problems of obesity and addiction are exaggerated, and therefore the medical costs are virtually uncontrollable. I think the biggest consequence of what happened on December 4th, besides of course that a life was taken, is the debate that was put on the table, is the tension that was created to improve the most important thing in this life. The truth is that I didn't know how to end this video. I'm not an expert on the health system and I'm not going to get any political lesson or revolutionary or anything here. I'm just a humble storyteller. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. It helps us a lot. See you in the next story.